everyone. Thanks for joining our session. I'm Jensen.
And I'm Sherif. We're from Atlassian. And we're going to cover all things AI agents. We're going to start with how to identify them.
Yep. How to build them.
Yeah, and then how to test them, get feedback, and make them better.
Yeah. Writing good prompts, writing good triggers, helping you orchestrate through these things.
Yeah, and then set it up for your team and orchestrate it, and so you look like a superhero in front of your team.
That's right.
All right, what is an agent 101? An agent consists of 4 rough, broad modules. Its identity, so its name and all that kind of stuff. Its knowledge, what information it has access to search. Its instructions, so that's where you'll spend most of your time defining what is the agent going to do, how it's going to do it. And its skills, so these are the tools or its capabilities that it can do, such as commenting on a page, creating a Jira issue, analyzing a bunch of Jira work items, and so forth. Now, most of you, when you create an agent, you'll spend most of your time writing these beautiful, beautiful prompts.
This is a Sherif prompt.
And you take pride in these prompts because you spend a lot of hours in these prompts. Now, this is an example of one of our agents that we ship out of the box. I'm not expecting you to read all the text there. But many of you have noticed, as you start to create an agent, you'll give it a very basic thing to do. But then you want your agent to do more jobs. So you'll start to give it maybe a bit of a menu of things you can do. Hey, here are the 4 things someone might ask you to help with. Find an existing decision, review a decision, etc. So you start creating these little mini menus, if you like, in your agent prompts. Maybe I'm seeing some nods, so some of you have had a go at that. And then you start putting these little conditions or go-to statements in your prompt. And your agent prompt gets more and more sophisticated. And what happens when your agent prompt gets more and more sophisticated? Does your agent get more reliable or less reliable? Yell it out. Less reliable, correct. So your prompt gets really complicated. And what do we normally tell you when you do this? Break it down into smaller chunks and create a new agent. Now, so many of you have created a lot of task-based agents. So agents that kind of do one thing, one task. But what's new to Studio is you're going to be able to create agents that do a lot more things. So Jensen, let's walk us through all the things that will make us create more reliable and agents that can do more things.
Awesome. Yep, happy to. So basically, when you think about these agents, most of your instructions and the things that you're doing boil down to the instructions, the skills, and the knowledge, right? So the things we talked about before. So what happens when you're building an agent is you either build that task-based, overly simplistic, single job to be done agent, and you have to build a bunch of agents that way, right, to do multiple jobs, or you end up creating these really robust prompts and it's less reliable, right? So something that we just launched is something called scenarios. So essentially, this bundles these into a single concept, and you can have multiple of these within your agent. We also introduced a new field called behavior, and behavior is essentially the tone of your agent, the way you want it to behave all of the time, right? So if you think about how your prompt goes through this, or how the input is, you give the agent input, it runs through the behavior, it runs through the scenario, and then it gives you output, right? So this is a single job to be done. Now, let's say you have multiple jobs to be done in your agent. You essentially give it these if-else statements, right? So if a user asks for you to do this, then I want you to do that. If a user asks you to do thing B, then I want you to do something else. And then your default scenario, the one at the top, you'll notice it does not have a trigger. That's because it's your else statement. This is the one that it will always fall back onto, right? So this will be your core job to be done, and then you can give it additional jobs to be done underneath that.
So my giant, beautiful prompt, I can now break that into smaller chunks.
Yeah.
So for each time I'm expecting a different kind of input from the user, I can model that as a different scenario.
Correct.
And then let me just play back. And the default scenario is what it'll do regardless of everything. It's the else statement.
It's the else statement, yeah.
It's the else statement, cool.
And the important thing to note here is each scenario has its own instructions, its own skills, and its own knowledge.
Why is that?
So let's think about like a service use case, right? So you have, if a user asks, how do I fix my VPN? I want you to respond with a specific set of documentation. I want that VPN page. If they ask a different question that I have not defined, I want you to search through our entire IT knowledge base and give a response, right? And so you can define specific knowledge or specific actions. So maybe somebody wants to report a bug, it goes to Jira. Somebody wants to raise a feature request, it goes to JPD. You can essentially route the skills based on the intent of the question.
So it's almost like if we were creating lots of little agents, we can now put them, the mini agents, as scenarios.
They're mini agents,
nice.
Exactly.
Like a team of agents.
A team of agents, right. Yes, in one agent. So there's 3 basic flows that you go through when you're creating an agent, right? So we want to break it down into 3 steps. First, you're going to identify the problem. What are you trying to solve? Next, we'll build that agent. Then we'll deploy it. And then, of course, we're going to improve and iterate it through testing, right? So once you build an agent, you're not done, right? You have to test it. You have to figure out how it works, figure out where its gaps are, and continue to iterate on that as you go. So when you identify your agent, there's 3 main things that I like to walk people through. So first, you're going to write down the steps. You'll identify the tasks, and you'll find opportunities. So document each step in the workflow. I personally like to draw it out in like a flow chart or like a whiteboard so that I can understand specific items that I can pull them through.
The other tip I had from customers is, put your hand up if you've ever modeled any workflow in Jira automation or whatever. They're actually probably already your existing workflows. So if you go back to your existing Jira workflows that you've already built for your teams, you can probably start to identify agent opportunities in each of those workflows and work out, oh, in that step of the workflow, I could replace that with an agent.
Yeah, or take a screenshot, upload it into chat, and have it do that for you, right?
Wait, say that again?
Yeah, you can take the screenshot of that workflow.
Of the Jira workflow?
Yep, upload it to chat.
Yeah.
And just say like, hey, can you help me write an agent that solves this problem?
Give me an idea for an agent that could, oh, that's a great idea.
Awesome. And then for each of these steps, we want to write down the tasks for them, right? So maybe there's a step that you do, but then there's specific instructions that you do within that task. Then we'll find those opportunities. So where can I put an agent into this specific workflow that will help move me forward? And now previously, before scenarios, you had to make multiple agents to solve this workflow. Now you just need one. So let's think about a specific use case that I deal with every day. So this is based on something that I have to deal with, which essentially is, or thank you for giving me feedback, but every time you click thumbs up, thumbs down, that goes into my queue. You click thumbs ups and thumbs down over 2,000 times a day. That's a lot of feedback for me to read, and I can't actually get through it all if you still want features shipped to Rovo agents. So you got to pick one or the other. So essentially, I have a workflow where I want an agent to review support tickets, review customer feedback, review specific channels where I'm getting feedback. So maybe that be like Loom recordings or Slack messages or wherever that content is coming in, I can bring it all together. I'll then group those ideas and I'll consolidate them into singular items, right? So if 10 of those items are related to a specific feature, it'll group into that feature idea. I'll then analyze those against my existing roadmap to see if they already exist, right? So if they already exist, I'm going to ignore them. If they don't exist, I'm going to make new items on my backlog so I can start tracking feedback and see how exciting people want it, right?
So
it's something people
scanning
need.
customer feedback coming in, find the big themes. If I've already got items in my backlog for it, ignore it. If I haven't, put it in my Jira product discovery.
Exactly,
Nice.
right? And the beauty of scenarios, right, is this isn't the only thing my agent can do, right? So I would loop this into a scenario with a trigger, without a trigger, if it's my default. I might also want to write release notes. I might also want to write community blogs, right? So these are things that I'm doing on a weekly basis that I really want to automate. And they're just like the community blog or the template, they're just simple templates that my agent follows in order to write things in the format I want.
So you're giving this agent a promotion, more and more responsibilities to do,
right.
more and more tasks. Yeah.
Exactly. And freeing up more time for me.
Yeah.
So it's great. Win, win, win.
All right. That's how to identify the opportunity to create an agent. Let's jump in and build that example that Jensen talked about. We'll start with that first and default scenario of looking across the backlog, looking across the customer feedback items, checking if it's already on the Jira product discovery backlog and putting that on the list. And you're going to jump and go create an agent straight away. Now, normally you'll get a prompt with a natural language interface to help you create an agent, but this is the 201 course, so we'll skip that prompt and go to the advanced mode, because you guys all know what you're doing. And this is the agent configuration if you skip it. It's blank. So we're going to start from scratch here and roll our own. First thing we're going to do is add a behavior. And the behavior describes how you would like the agent to work. I want you to be very precise and accurate, and don't answer the question if you don't know. That might be a good use case for things like help desks or deflecting work. But maybe you're writing some creative writing content and you want an agent to help people with brand guidelines or assistance or give them ideas. So in that case, you would tell the agent to be more exploratory and have lots of ideas. So this is how you would like the agent to behave. So we'll go on and we've defined the agent behavior. So that will happen for all scenarios. Of all scenarios, I want you to act this specific way. The next thing we're going to do is add our first scenario. So the one where we're going to read all that customer feedback that you're sending to Jensen, find those themes, and then put it in there. So this is the giant instruction box inside. This is where you'll spend most of your time. Think of this as your IDE and where you'll be doing all the advanced stuff. So let's go back to look at our process flow that we defined. What are we trying to do here? We want to review support tickets, review incoming customer feedback, all the different channels, find the themes, and analyze it against the Jira product discovery roadmap. So we'll start writing our prompt. Now, before we do, let's give you some prompting tips. Now, these tips we're about to share with you here today are agnostic of Rovo and everything. They're really just really good prompt engineering skills that you'll build over time. Defining the role and the objectives, breaking it down to smaller steps, giving examples, and spending your time iterating and working out where it fails and improving it. Let's jump into some prompting tips. So the first thing you want to do is think of this agent as a new team member that's just joined your team. What do? If you're the manager, you'll tell them what their role is, and you'll give them very clear goals and objectives. Saying the same idea, you want to do this with your agent. You're telling them, oh, I want you to help me analyze customer feedback. Your job is to analyze feedback and make sure things go in my backlog that I don't have feedback items for, etc. And you'll give it a set of objectives. The next thing you want to do is get your new starter. And remember, your new starters just joined your company. They don't have any prior knowledge that's in your mind. So write your set of instructions into steps. And for each step, assume the person you're talking to has no contextual knowledge that you've built over the years. So in this example, we want to say, all right, for every new feedback item that comes in, I want you to read the ticket carefully, find the main issue, write a summary of the feedback item in your own words, and then I want you to group these into ideas, and so on and so forth.
Now, I see a lot of people taking photos.
They're
That's
taking
great.
photos of me, Dora.
I know, it's okay. But all of this is actually in a community blog, so you'll get links to all of these prompts and everything we did, so you don't have to transcribe them down, at least.
But feel free to take photos.
Yeah, you can take
want.
photos.
It's totally up to you. Okay, so you'll get this prompt and everything, so you'll have lots of examples. All right, so again, be very specific with your instructions. Assume the person doesn't have the knowledge you have, and write them as detailed as you can. All right, our next tip is give them examples. Many of you do things like performance reviews with your managers, and you look back and you go, what have we done good at? And you cite examples, and you go, what did I not do good at, and what do I need to get better at? Same thing with your agents. So give it an example. So here's an example of some customer feedback that are actually, I would call feature requests. You can also use tables to give the agent definition. LLMs are great at reading Markdown. Markdown is a really basic formatting way to give the agent a more tabular structure. So you could tell it to, here's an example of the findings I want you to return. So I want you to return information in this format. Here's an example. Don't forget, you can also give the agent bad examples. So if you test your agent once and it returns something you don't like, put that as an example of a bad example, and it'll learn over time. Again, you can add as much detail as you like to this, but giving it examples is a really good tactic.
And one thing I'd say is you don't always have to write down the whole example. If you already have this in a Confluence page, for example, you can just go ahead and put that link, right? That smart link directly in your prompt and say, hey, use this as an example. Follow this template. You don't have to write it all down if you already have the content.
I met a customer that in their instruction said to the agent, I want you to follow the business rules on this page. Pasted a link to a Confluence page. Then they got their business users to, all they have to do is maintain a table in Confluence, and the agent uses that logic in that table to assess the specific use case they were trying to do. So it's a really good technique. Your agent gets smarter as you just keep updating the page. It sounds like magic, but it's not really. All right, the next prompting tip is, I think, where you'll spend most of your time. Most people that talk to us that do an agent will write a simple prompt, run it once or twice, and they go, oh, that's pretty cool. And then they'll run into all the issues as they start putting it with real production data. Mm-hmm. This is the difference between an agent that kind of works 60% of the time and 80, 90% of the time. You want to spend your time finding out when you run your agent, where did it go wrong, and then coming back and improving your prompt. This is where this is the highest value item you could do. As an example, the top item here, first time we ran this agent, we found that sometimes it returned a bunch of feature requests that it found in the backlog, so from customer feedback, but it didn't reference the Jira product discovery link, and we want that link. Mm-hmm. So we came back to our prompt and said, if you're going to give us a feature request, always provide the Jira link, right? And you want to keep iterating on these things. Try it in different scenarios, try it with different data sets, and keep giving it those additional considerations, or find the scenarios where it doesn't work, come back to the prompt and improve your prompt. This is the highest value thing you could be doing.
Thank you so much for joining us for this session at Microsoft Ignite. We hope you had a great time.
We had a lot of fun also creating this content, and we love geeking out on this stuff. So if you'd love to learn more or have a chat to us, check out the link below.